So when Georgia Republican Rich McCormick held a town hall in his safe ruby red GOP district, he was not prepared for what was about to happen.
We are all freaking pissed off about this. You're going to hear it.
The conservative approach is to take this in a slow and methodical way so that you make sure you do it right. And that's not happening.
You can go and yell all you want, but I can't understand 10 people, let alone 100 people at once.
Constituents lashing out loud, blasting the Republican lawmaker over massive federal layoffs and budget cuts by President Trump and Elon Musk. But clearly, the congressman heard his constituents because the outspoken Trump ally returned to Capitol Hill with a message for the world's richest man. Show a little more compassion, pal.
I think some of their actions have been too rapid to adapt to for real people. I mean, you're talking about Republicans. You're talking about just Democrats.
Congressman Rich McCormick joining me now. Congressman, good to see you. I want to know, what did you tell Elon Musk when he met with you and fellow Republicans on the Hill this week? We saw a little bit about what you said to our Rachel Scott there in the hallway, but take me inside the room.
Well, I've been very vocal when it comes to Elon. The first time I met him was over 2 years ago in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, before he was even a Republican by name. He specifically said, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm a businessman, I just try to produce a product. He's very proud of that. When somebody asked him in the room, what could Republicans do better? He said very specifically, I think you guys should come across as more compassionate. And that's one thing I keep on advising Elon Musk to do is no chainsaws, no celebrating people losing their jobs. Some of this is very necessary stuff in my mind. I'm a very strict conservative when it comes to fiscal conservatism and spending and making sure that we're within our means, that we're doing the right thing for our children. But you don't celebrate that. And I think we have to be compassionate when it comes to realizing that some of this is going to create pain. When you have the second leading producer of jobs in the last 4 years has been government next to healthcare, that's going to slow down considerably. And you just showed the job market numbers. We're going to have a slower growth in job production if you're not hiring in the government. It's going to take a transfer of thought process in these businesses that now have to adapt to different regulations, tariffs, and taxes and regulations. I think this is something that we have to be understanding of those businesses and what it's going to hurt and how it's going to hurt and make sure that people understand why it needs to be done for future generations.
Okay, so you're being very open and vocal about this, and you told Elon to slow down, be more compassionate, take a step back. But were there other Republicans in the room that said the same thing that you were saying, or were you the Lone Ranger here?
So I wasn't in that specific meeting. I had other meetings that night. I have talked to him at other times, and we've actually talked about what it means to be compassionate. When you have a 21% cut in Social Security down the road in about 7 years, another one in 11% of Medicare in about 9 years, roughly, that we can go through this whole golden age of 4 years, and then in the next presidential term, come due pays, basically things we're going to have to pay for. And when the corruption of this currency happens, because we didn't do anything compassionate to save it from automatic cuts we will not even vote on, we will have something come to pay that we have not prepared for. And I hate that we are constantly reactive instead of proactive. And that's the message I want to have is, look, this is a bipartisan problem. We got in this problem bipartisanly. Republicans and
Democrats. But why aren't we hearing from more Republicans? Why aren't we hearing from more Republicans? I hear you. I mean, you're out there. You're being very bold and standing up to it. But why aren't we hearing more Republicans like you do the same thing? Have more interviews like this?
I think a lot of people realize that this is a hard thing to fight. When you have one person, the president, driving the entire train, everybody wants to be on board with the president. Everybody wants the president to be successful in our party. But we all have different ideas. And I think it's important to be vocal because we are each represented by our constituency. I think we each have something to add to this. And I think we are a republic, not a monarchy, not a dictatorship, not a theocracy. As they say, democracy is the worst of all governments except for every other kind. This is painfully slow. It's the way we're designed, but it's the way we're designed on purpose so we never become more powerful than the people themselves.
Well, okay, interesting. Never more powerful than the people themselves. Is Elon Musk becoming more powerful than Congress? Because he's railroading right over Congress and not consulting anyone. He's just doing what he wants to do, and he's slashing and purging. And there's been a number of members of Congress saying, really, what can we do? The president's telling him what to do and giving him full reign here.
To be fair, actually, the president just addressed this. He said, we're going to slow some things down. We're walking some things back. There are mistakes that are going to be made anytime you're being aggressive. But people also want to see change. They elected him knowing what he was going to do and knowing that there's a ton of waste, fraud, and abuse in the government spending that he pointed out very specifically in his speech recently that people don't agree with. And so, but we're going to make mistakes along the way. That's typical. But the government in general has been very bloated, very wasteful. And that's what got the people so angry to begin with. That's why we had an election that really mattered when we turned over a total concept between the divergence of parties, where you have one party that believes government is the answer to everything, and another party that's supposedly supposed to believe in the people and in private industry and us governing ourselves rather than a government telling us what's right and wrong and how you run your business.
Believe in the people. There you go. You faced significant backlash at that town hall. Are you going to do it again? And are you encouraging your fellow Republicans to hold town halls as well?
A lot of people say they'll never do it because they tried it back in 2017-18, had very similar results. If I do it, when I do it, we'll make sure it's a controlled environment so that everybody who comes has something to gain out of it. It doesn't do anybody any good if you go, it's just like you've seen interviews on your news agency where it's just people yelling at each other. Nobody gets anything out of that. We want to make sure it's a controlled environment that when people come there in good faith to have a good discussion, that they actually can have that discussion rather than just hear people scream. And so I want to make sure it's a designed environment so that people can actually come away saying, I like that discussion. We didn't all agree, but at least we got to express our opinions and learn something.
Well, you're definitely practicing what you preach, that's for sure. One more question. What are you doing right now to support those that you heard from in that town hall that are suffering right now from these cuts?
We're having discussions on how we implement our changes. You know, we haven't codified this in law. The things that the DOGE is doing, that the president is doing by executive order, he's actually trying to be more deliberate, the president is, and he's actually told Elon Musk that. And I want to make sure that we're deliberate as well in Congress when it comes to this new budget, when we talk to reconciliation, and when we talk about the programs down the way that have to be fixed before they go bankrupt. I think we have to be very deliberate, realize that if you do it too quickly, it can cause real harm. And we always had a saying in the military, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. In other words, be deliberate, be thoughtful, and adjust as you go.
There you go. That should be SOP across the board. Congressman Richard McCormick, Republican of Georgia. Appreciate you, Richard. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.